Boom. According to that, I am live. Welcome to the Hiko Goodness. Good to have you, Steve, from Berkeley, here with us, as well as Quinn Rankid. Good evening. I'm on time. That's unusual. Thanks. I know I just sent out the invite a couple of minutes ago. Another busy week. I guess it's just the end of year. Hope everyone is okay and staying safe. It looks like all over the world it is getting a little bit crazy again with the coronavirus stuff here in Japan too, although it's all relative, I suppose, when I see what's happening in UK and US. Same story every week, I suppose. We did top in Tokyo 800 cases in a day one time this week, so like 2 or 3 weeks ago 200 seemed like a lot, and now it's 800. So yeah, please do stay at home, do socially distance and do all that good stuff, and hope that you're all doing okay. It's as Christmas goes, I'm going to take the day off work, but there is no holiday this week. It was actually good a few years ago when the Showa Emperor, when he was in charge on his birthday, December 23rd, you could kind of take a quasi early Christmas. I used to joke that we'd take a day off to commemorate the birth of a different baby, the Emperor. Yay. But we don't get that one anymore. So even like the dubious substitute Christmas, we don't really have anymore. But that's all okay. Probably do a few phone calls and stuff like that. But yeah. Curious what people are doing for Christmas. Maybe in the comments, share. I mean, and by the way, when I say that, I don't. Well, what if you're religious? That's great. All the more reason to celebrate it. I think Christmas really in like New Zealand and Australia, where I grew up, is really like another Thanksgiving, except we don't have a Thanksgiving. We have Christmas instead. So, it's just a time that you travel, catch up with family, and have dinner with them, and so on. And that's what we typically do. But yeah, I think the sensible thing is right now that everyone's staying at home. And yeah, Japan has been kind of quiet. I've been kind of quiet. Just work is crazy, just with the end of year stuff in Japan. Hey, we got Ninjaru. Good to see you, Ninjaru88. Kangin Kodos. Good to see you. Good to see Quinn Rankin. Good to see Steve from Berkeley. And everybody else rocking in. Love it when people say hello. It's always nice to see the names. Remember, as always, if you want to say hello to me or make a comment or ask me a question or request a topic, just at Mark equals Simon. I don't have a lot tonight. Hey, DJ Sunnyside Up. Excellent to see you. Good to have you in here. Member of the Tokyo Digital crew. Still making a ton of regular music as well, which I definitely respect. Good to have you in here, man. And we've got Paragoti as well. So, yeah, lots and lots of people coming in. And, yeah, great to see everyone. We've got the J-Vlog. Salutations back at you, 07, yes. Good to see you. Yeah, so nice to have everyone coming in. Again, like last week, I'm probably... it's funny, I've now just slipped into the habit of working 7 days a week. Yeah, I'm hoping it'll ease up a little bit in the new year. But, hey, Erin, good to see you. So, yeah, partly because of that, I haven't been that active. I have been sharing a little bit of what's been going on. One thing is, I've been running like 3 or 4 times a week consistently for months and months. And last week... actually, week before last, I was going out on a run. It was getting colder, and I didn't stretch properly, and I felt my Achilles getting tight, and that happened on 2 runs. And having snapped I'm pretty sure I snapped my Achilles. I couldn't walk for weeks. I couldn't really run for like 3 months, way back in March or April. I decided this time the best thing to do was just to rest completely for a week. So I actually took a complete week off, and I did a couple of light jogs this week, and there was no real problems. I'll probably get back into it. But yeah, I took a break from running, and I've also been thinking, what would I like to get myself for end of year? And because I've been here working all the time, I get to work from home, and that's great. But I've been doing that a lot lately, and thinking about, I always think it makes sense to spend money where you spend your time. If you've got something that you use every day, like a smartphone, makes sense. A wallet makes sense. A watch makes sense. If you've got something that you use like regularly, it's worth spending a bit more on. I don't actually have a fancy watch, by the way. I just have this Withings thing, but I quite like these. The battery lasts for like a month, and it tracks heartbeat and steps, and it syncs with the smartphone, so it's a good watch. But what I do like is keyboards, and right now I've got this thing. It's a Harvard mechanical keyboard. I can't get it into the picture, I don't think. Maybe I can. This is nice. It is mechanical, it works, but it's got blue switches. Blue switches are the noisiest, clickiest ones. So, great if you're into gaming and you want to make sure that you hit every key perfectly. But I've noticed, like, when I'm working from home, and I'm doing calls sometimes where I have to take notes, and I cannot take notes and be on a call at the same time with a blue mechanical keyboard. So I've been thinking for a while about getting a nice, quieter but still mechanical keyboard. And after much hunting around, I did tweet the other day that I've ordered a custom-made mechanical keyboard from a maker in China, but they make keyboards basically fully to spec, including colored keycaps, including Japanese layout if you wanted. The only thing I couldn't get on the Japanese layout was wireless, which you do get on the Western ones, and I was almost tempted to get a Western layout keyboard, but you have missing keys and they're in different places, and my muscle memory is completely now adjusted to Japanese, and I always get really annoyed and frustrated whenever I use Western keyboards. I've lost that skill. So I got a self-designed, completely customized Japanese keyboard that's coming in a few weeks. So I cannot wait to share that with all you guys when I get it. It's a bit of a rabbit hole, but it's a fun rabbit hole, seeing the whole world of people that actually solder and build keyboards. And I learned enough from that I didn't want to solder. I didn't want to take any risks on that sort of thing, but I did want to. I learned what all the switches were, I learned what the boards were, I learned what the stabilizers were, I learned the difference between the keycaps and the bases, and I thought, well, yeah, I've got enough information that I can build one to spec. So, yeah, that'll be pretty awesome. I think I've got a picture of that in here somewhere. Who else we got rocking in here? We got Kagan Kodos. Yes, you're in the Tech Art too. Excellent to see you. And JMac217. Boom, indeed. We've got everybody rocking in. Good to see. Yeah, Tech Art too. I've actually got a Philco with brown switches at work, and it's lovely. It's actually a solid keyboard. I've been tempted a few times to actually go back into the office to go get it. My blue mechanical keyboard is great for when you're working on your own, but yeah, you can't use it on calls, and I definitely could never take it into the office. It's way too noisy. It's beautiful, but it's too noisy. So yeah, if I get this, I'm getting silent red Cherry MX switches for it, and I'm getting it professionally made. So hopefully it'll come out well. So we'll see what happens. But yes, Mr. Cordy Chap, Sydney back into lockdown. I've got a friend who lives in Manly, and they're on lockdown. There are worse places in the world, honestly, to be locked down than Manly Beach. But, yeah, the J-Vlog. How naughty do I want to be this Christmas? I don't. That sounds a little bit weird. I'm a middle-aged white man, I think we just get to be as naughty as, we no longer really care. I just buy presents for myself. So yeah, Tokyo 503, boom, good to see you in the comments there as well. But yeah, it is actually fun. Another thing I've been enjoying in recent weeks is that the lad, while I've tried not to impose my own childhood likes and hobbies onto my son, so that I can relive vicariously my enjoyment of things like Star Wars. So I've given my son my Star Wars figures and my toys and stuff like that, which I have a bunch of, which I still kind of obsess over a little bit. And I've taken him to the movies, and he never really quite got into it the same way I did. He'd watch it, and that was all okay. However, the lad, he has gotten into The Mandalorian, and through The Mandalorian he's discovered Chrome Wars. And yeah, hey Dan H, good to have you. Happy Hanukkah indeed, if that's your thing, and Merry Christmas, and Happy Kwanzaa, and all the other holidays, whatever is applicable. Season's greetings, I think, is a neutral one. I say Christmas, but not in a particularly religious sense. But yeah, thank you very much, Dan H. So anyway, he got into The Mandalorian, and from The Mandalorian he's got into Chrome Wars, and now he's just watching the Star Wars movies, all 9 of them, over and over. And it's actually, the prequels get a bit of a bad break. They are actually okay movies. They are, if you watch them again. They've got their own. I think again, the big thing about the prequels was, there are issues with the movies, but I think most of the backlash against them was more to do with people my age just resenting not feeling excited and entranced like they were children again, which, yeah, you're not kids anymore. Sorry. And truth is, my son and other kids actually, really like those movies. But, loving The Mandalorian. And as a result, now he's getting into Star Wars, which I am now getting to enjoy. So, spoiler here, we've got some lightsabers have been purchased. And he enjoys doing a bit of that fighting with me. So, Andrew Meredith, good to see you. Evening from near Nakano. I used to live in Nakano. I used to live in Nakano Shimbashi, or basically in between Nakano Shimbashi and Nakano Sakue. Beautiful place. You could actually walk to Shinjuku from there. That was like the first apartment that I lived on my own in Japan. Yeah, started out living with my girlfriend, and then I was living there by myself, which at the time was devastating, but it was like the best thing that ever happened to me. So, yeah, they don't have the same level of story. Well, like I said, I think they're a bit over criticized. The J-Vlog, I got the book, Do You Need It with the Lights On? Asking the real questions. Pick a page from 3 to 99. Oh, I am afraid. 72. I'm going to pick a page 72. And I'm afraid of what will follow. No love for Lone Wolf and Cub. Okay, I feel like I'm supposed to understand that, and I realize it didn't have my tag on it, so I'm just going to look past that. Let's get into the topics, because I did promise at the beginning, as I do many weeks, but this week, honestly, it has been another busy week, and I haven't been that focused on news. I've been watching the news every night, but I haven't been tweeting so much. So there actually isn't so much, and there isn't a lot going on, to tell the truth. Hey, Sadiq, good to see you, and welcome into the chat. Yeah, good to see you in there. Season's greetings, happy end of year. And yeah, so look, what's going on in Japan? Going surfing next weekend. Oh man, Kochi is nice for surfing. Kochi, Miyazaki, Shizuoka, Chiba. Actually, Fukushima is awesome. Best surfing I've done in my life was in Fukushima, but people tell me Kochi and Miyazaki are really, really good as well. So that is that's great. I'm jealous. DJ Sunnyside up. Anyway, into the topics. Interesting this week. There was the LDP was considering putting together a bill along the lines of allowing Japanese to opt to keep separate surnames even when married. The chart there, by the way, that they're holding up for the people advocating this, specifically, there was a lawsuit for it. It's actually got the it's got the idea that you can keep separate names, and it points out that if both Japanese, they are not allowed to have separate names, but they are allowed separate names if they marry with a foreign national, and when they're divorced, they're allowed to have separate names. And they're actually claiming that it is a violation of Japanese rights that they don't get to have separate names like they do if they marry foreigners. That's actually just an accident, because we're not on the family register. But yeah, it got pushed into committee, and apparently the conservative factions within the LDP said, we're not having that, and they killed it. And the result of that was that it got booted. It's not going forward. The fuddy-duddies in the LDP just thought this is too much. And Mio Sugita, the kind of... Yeah, I was going to say nut job. I'm not going to say nut job. She probably is what she is, but yeah, she seems to grab attention for the wrong reasons. And she did a tweet saying, everybody, it's okay. We killed the separate names bill. I mean, why do you even care? Honestly, it's like a lot of things around this. But yeah, we got Odie Jr. and Greg joining in here. Greg asking, was the Ginza Japan's original electronics shopping district probably no longer the best place to shop for keyboards? Greg, interesting question. Ginza was the original Shinjuku. That was like the place. It was like the shopping place. When Shinjuku was like barely even a station. There was no Akihabara wasn't a thing. Ginza was the original place that everyone went to shop. And just as the people who went there, as the generations progressed, that generation that went there just got richer and older, and it became a neighborhood for old rich people to go to. And young people claimed their own different neighborhoods. So it kind of was for electronics as it was for in the same way that Shinjuku is, that it used to have everything. Is it the best place to shop for keyboards? If I was looking specifically for custom keyboards, I'm sure that if I went to Akihabara, there are probably multiple keyboard specialist shops there. The back streets parallel to the main road in Akihabara have lots of shops where you can just buy motherboards, or just buy PC cases, or just buy... and I'm pretty sure I've seen monitors. They have monitor shops. I'm pretty sure that around between Akihabara and Kanda, I think there are keyboard specialist places. What's interesting is that the custom keyboard scene in Japan is almost entirely based on Western layout keyboards. It's a bit like people who buy cars that are left-hand drive. The most ridiculous thing I remember when I got here was in Fukuoka, seeing that there were Rolls Royces being driven with tinted windows that looked like Yakuza, but you could make out that the Jaguars and the Rolls Royces were actually converted over to left-hand drive, even though they're from the UK, where they're right-hand drive, the same as Japan, but they made them left-hand drive in order to make them look imported. And it's a little bit like that with keyboard snobbery, that they use Western layout, even though it's got fewer keys, and their keys are in different places, which is super annoying to me, but there you go. Hope that answers your question. It's Sergeant Bilko, excellent to see you. Boom, good to have you in here. And I think I said boom back at Odie Jr. And awesome to see you. And your King Charles Spaniel logo, I do love. I've had one of those before, and they're beautiful dogs. So that's that thing. I was on the sustainability podcast video earlier in the week with JJ Walsh. It was a good video. We're always good to chat to her, and it was a good video. So yeah, go and check out, if you haven't subscribed to her channel, and check out the video. It was just a good chat about, there was a lot of news that we had to catch up on, 2 months of news, where we just picked out the highlight stories. But yeah, a lot of really, really cool stuff with electric cars. Oh, and the awesome thing about that video was, not only did we talk about environment, but we also had a drop in by, oh God, I've dropped the name, but pop culture commentator, like awesome, knows everything about Japanese pop culture, lectures and writes books about it. And the name dropped, but he came on and was talking about Korea relations there for a moment, which was super interesting. And about yeah, we brought up the topic of Korea and Japan, J-pop and K-pop relationships and so on. It was really good anyway. But yes, the J-Vlog, you've got a naughty book out. Well, that's, and in the comments, well, page 72, are men satisfied with the size of their junk? 65% yes, 35% no. I don't really understand not being, I mean, listen, if I had a question, am I satisfied with the hair on my head? I don't give a shit. I really don't. I'm quite comfortable. I mean, look, if I wanted to, I could do something about it. I could go get Rogaine, and I could go to clinics, and I know people that have done it, and you can actually restore. It's a lot of work, and it's a lot of, and then when apparently the treatments can have other side effects, that strike me as far too much hassle for something that, I'm quite comfortable with the extra aerodynamics. So I think it's a bit like that. Like, I don't know, going through life not being satisfied. I mean, it's not something that you can control. If it's your weight, I get it. You can you can control that. But it's like not liking the color of your skin. I used to hate my skin, by the way. I am a multi-time worst tan contest winner in a place like New Zealand or Australia, where you're outside all the time, and I just can't tan it. I just go red and white the whole time. Japanese flag. Yeah, I'm probably. So I suppose if you asked me about that, I'd say I wasn't satisfied with my skin. But there again, what's the point? And so what can you do? So yeah, I don't get people who have a complex about not being satisfied with their junk. But yes, each to their own. Thank you for the contribution. Spent far too much time on that. Believe in yourself. Excellent to see you. Mr. Cordy Chip, haven't been able to cut your hair in ages. Well, listen, I used to spend $35, $40 a haircut. I used to go to Harajuku at a hairdresser that I quite liked. I actually had good hair. And then when it started thinning out, one day it just got to a point where, rather than growing it long, one day I grew it kind of a little bit extra long for a time. At high school, in university, I did have it quite long. I just decided, okay, I'm just going to grow it one more time. And then I went and I thought I'd get some clippers. And I went to Don Quixote and I found some clippers. And the clippers were actually like $15. And I was like, that's less than half the price of an actual haircut. And you know what? I used the first set of clippers for about 6 years. And then I got a really nice set of clippers after that for like 3,000 yen. And I've used that. I just cut my hair. I cut my hair tonight. I did it every week. So I've never, that one. So basically, whereas I used to spend 3,500 yen, 4,000 yen a haircut, now I basically have spent on haircuts for the last, 15 years or more. I've spent a total of about 4,000 yen. And I'm happy. I'm happy with the results. So there you go. Mr. Cordy Chip, $40 a haircut. Yeah, for a nice place. For Japanese ones, you actually do the whole thing with scissors. You get a bit of a shoulder massage. It's nice, Japanese. It's different to Australia. They don't just get the clippers and tidy up the edges at the end. They'll do the whole thing properly. So yeah, Kang and Kodos end up looking like a Polish flag. Yes, indeed, or the Indonesian flag, or yes, one of many other from above, like the Japanese flag, especially now. Anyway, how did I get onto that? It wasn't talking about the sustainability podcast with JJ Walsh, which you should all follow and subscribe to. And I did an awesome show with her this week, so please go check that out and follow. It is a bit of a joke. It is a bit of a running joke every time that Japan registers something new on the UNESCO World Heritage List. I joked to myself that Japan, next to adding to the UNESCO Heritage List, to the UNESCO Heritage List, it seems to put everything on there. That said, Putting Japanese-style carpentry on the list, I do kind of get it. It does make sense. There's an awful lot of cool stuff. Yeah, Aaron, that's right. Squirrel. Yes, in fact, your squirrel just squirreled me. Back on subject. While Japan does, people do joke at the number of weird things that Japan probably has some. It's like the NHK props guy, where NHK they make the most amazing news props. And come think of it, I haven't really seen them lately, but it was like these were on like once a news show. These elaborate cardboard props that were like amazing. And clearly what happened was they paid somebody, they probably hired somebody to make these things. And after he made one or two of these props, they realized that this person's now got a salary and they can't fire them. So they're there. So they just kept pumping out props for NHK News. And it's a bit like that, I think, with UNESCO Heritage. I'm sure that there's a department now in Japanese government that does do nothing other than prepare and get things on the UNESCO Heritage list. That said, the Japanese architectural stuff and the Japanese style carpentry, it is a thing. Japanese like artisanal architects and so on, back in the Edo period, they could build the largest wooden structures like in the world. They could build 10-story high fortified castles out of wood with no nails. They could actually cut the wood beams and everything in just a certain way that they would like slot together, that they would be weight supporting and perfectly fitted, and they could sustain enormous weights of multi-story castles and buildings, and they didn't use nails. They were amazing, and they figured out back in the Edo Jidai, when again without using nails and without a bunch of other things, they figured out how to make them even earthquake resistant. They figured that rather than like we do, putting foundation pillars and deep cement in the ground, allowing the wooden pillars to sit on top of pillars, allowing buildings to actually shake and move on top of them in the case of earthquakes, and they put them on a parabolic foundation so that they'd shuffle around and then they go back to the original position. They actually figured out how to earthquake-proof buildings and how to build large wood. There is actually a lot of cool stuff. The only thing that they never figured out, and they still haven't figured out for a lot of Japanese carpentry, is how to insulate buildings, which is so bizarre. Japan gets so hot in summer and so cold in winter, and yet the idea of just putting fiberglass in the walls or the roof just to be able to keep heat or cool in and save energy is just somehow it never caught on in Japan. And Japanese spend so much on gasoline heat, or what do they actually call it? It's like turpentine or something. It smells toxic that they have on the internal heaters, and crazy air conditioning bills. So there are weird things about modern carpentry in Japan like that, but the traditional carpentry in Japan is like a lot of things in Japan. Some people just spend a lot of time plugging away, and they figured out some really cool stuff. So the J-Vlog, no problem at all. Sergeant Bilko, what is the benefit of having something on that list? I guess I think that the case is, in most cases, I don't know where you would put architectural heritage, but I'm guessing that there is some local government or somewhere that pivots these things into tourism, or maybe there's going to be a museum somewhere of Japanese carpentry. I mean, that actually I'm sure is a thing that exists somewhere probably, and maybe it's even government funded, and it's mainly to promote tourism and to sort of justify and let these groups feel good about themselves, that they're unique and special and whatnot. Ben Grant, good to see you there in the comments. Kerosene, Quint Ragged, that's the word I was looking for. R3 but for fire only. I don't know what you mean, but yes. Hey, Japanese rockers on the UNESCO Heritage List. Visit it for $40. $40 would be cheap. And yes, that's exactly how it sort of works. This is, again, just been so much in the news lately. There's a little bit of this, and this is kind of what I was talking about with JJ Walsh. But the Japanese economy, a big part of how Japan became so competitive was the way it reacted to the oil crisis, when Japan realized, because it does not have any domestic energy supply, and it was life or death, that it had to become really energy efficient back in the 70s. And it turned out that its pivot towards having really energy efficient cars and production, those things turned out to save money and actually allow Japan to be far more competitive. They could produce cars and they could produce manufactured goods much cheaper because of the lower costs of energy from all the government efforts on conserving, promoting energy efficiency. And it turned out that these products were also desired when they were sold in America. And Japan's kind of going through the same thing again right now, that there's a big focus on decarbonization, on basically assuming that fossil fuels and climate change adding fuels are going to be subject to, well, basically right now they're externalities, but they should be priced in given the cost that can result to governments from the results of climate change. And apart from the fact that being able to get affordable renewable energy, on the assumption that renewable energy is going to become more mandatory and is more expensive, the more you can get better at that and you can provide it cheaply. And assuming that the cost of carbon is going to rocket up, which it should, basically given that governments have to figure out how to recoup the costs from the side effects of too much of it. And then Japan it seems to be doubling down on the theory, and the government is doing this and leading in a structural way the theory that having a decarbonized economy, an economy that runs on energy that doesn't add carbon into the atmosphere or burn carbon, is going to be a major source of competitive strength for Japan, just like it did in 1973. That makes it sort of exciting. Again, Japan has kind of stopped and started on this before, but I think it's true and it makes sense, so I'm excited to see where we go. And Lo Wang, nice to see another name there in the comments, so good to see you. So what else have we got going on here? I didn't talk about the Hana Kimura case because frankly I didn't know all that much about it. I don't know if anyone here has been following it, but it was a case involving a female pro wrestler who was on the TV show Terrace House, which I've never seen a complete episode of. I know it's really popular on sites like Netflix and it's watched internationally. It's basically one of the very few Big Brother type reality shows out of Japan. And I know people who really like the show. However, it became clear partly out of this that the show is like all of these reality shows. It is highly scripted, and particularly the drama that takes place is not entirely, they're not acting per se, but they are kind of directed on what to do and incidents and so on, and they're manipulated, and sometimes people are aware that it's a setup and sometimes they're not. But there was an incident on the show where in order to provoke a bit of drama, one of the provocateurs on the show was prompted by the staff to go and take this pro wrestler's sort of signature wrestling outfit and to put it in a dryer in a way that I think would shrink it or ruin it or do something to it in order to upset her, to create drama, and it did. And when she was upset, she reacted really badly to it, and her bad reaction caused a lot of negative reaction against her. And there were just a lot of online haters that just sort of focused, prolonged online sort of bullying thing, encouraging her to kill herself and do whatnot. And whether it was because, in the end of the day, why she finally did it is not clear. But in the end of the day, following prolonged bullying, which caused her to apologize and shut down her Twitter and, a bunch of other things, she did commit suicide. And the immediate thing was there were a lot of the haters that were pushing her towards this immediately. They deleted all of their accounts and police started sort of investigating who some of the worst among them were. Some other people pointed out it wasn't just the haters. I mean, the haters were being sort of fed red meat by the show that was deliberately looking to set up situations to feed into that. And some pointed out that the show itself should have been held accountable somewhat as well. And the show never really apologized, but they did shut down the show because of it. So this is like a year ago now. It was a long time ago now, but the Tokyo police have just arrested one of the online bullies over this, and they've charged with slander, which online slander. It's not actually clear to me what the penalties can be for that. Typically, slander or defamation is a civil case. It's rare that it's brought as a criminal case, but clearly in this case, they don't actually mention what the potential penalties are. But clearly in this case, the outcome was so bad and so public that the prosecutors thought it did make sense to try to identify who some of the worst haters were and to identify them and hold them accountable. And it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how the trial goes. I mean, the fact that they prosecuted, Japan's a 99.9% conviction country. Clearly, they've picked one person out, probably to be the example. and to do that. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I do think that the old, I know a lot of people go onto the internet to blow off steam, but a lot of people think, particularly immature people, can go on, and I don't know if it's worse or better than it was before. I suspect it's changed, but it used to be that there are people who would just go online to be monsters, to vent or whatnot, and the idea that you can stop being a human. I remember when it was controversial on YouTube to block comments or whatever. That was censoring. Even, you should allow me to vent and accept all the hate. Which was never made sense to me, and it's clearly the case now. It's common sense accepted that you can do that. But yeah, this is a real case of extreme cyberbullying, and I'm glad to see that the police have reacted like this, just to remind people that you can't go too far. And so yeah, interesting case. Some comments over there. Kang and Kodo, since Japan is the most volcanic active place in the world, why is there no geothermal energy there? The idea sounds silly not to have a nuclear-based power supply. Kang and Kodos. Well, Japan used to have 15% nuclear power, 20% nuclear power. Right now it's 0. There are no running nuclear power plants in Japan. There are 23, which are still trying to update their safety to meet the standards that would basically not have a meltdown again should something like Fukushima happen again. So very high standards. But yeah, coming back on geothermal power, I don't know exactly. I come from New Zealand, where we have a lot of geothermal power. New Zealand, I think Iceland is by proportion, maybe by volume as well as the most, and New Zealand is similar. New Zealand can do it partly because the scale, obviously, just the population is so much smaller. I don't know that there's no geothermal power, but I agree, it's interesting. There is a problem in New Zealand, in Rotorua, particularly in the central North Island, where I used to live, where they had geothermal power. When you have a lot of mini bores, little holes in the ground to be able to tap into geothermal power and wells, it does affect the onsens nearby and the geysers and so on. And I suppose there'd be some resistance in a place like Kusatsu to setting up a power station that fed off geothermal power, worried that it might affect the onsens nearby. That could be it. I don't know that there are no power stations. I guess you could do more. In a sense, onsen basically are, that they drill down deep to get the sort of warm water out. I agree, it's a bit of a mystery. It feels like they could do more. I suspect it's just got something to do with volume. But then again, that doesn't really make sense. It's a good question. I do not know. I'd be curious if anyone wants to look online and see if they can find an answer why Japan doesn't use more. In fact, there's Mr. Kordychev. The onsen mafia don't want geothermal to compete with them, but that is actually a thing. That is something in New Zealand that we had. The J-Vlog, R value is the amount of insulation. The higher the number, the better the insulation, which is totally separate from the fire retardants. Yeah. And by the way, what I mean is not fire retardants. Great bonus if you've got that. I think that's why they used to put asbestos in insulation in buildings. But no, I'm just thinking about temperature control. And I'm sure I've never heard of that R value concept before, but I'm pretty sure that means that Japan probably has a pretty low average R rating score. So, Mr. Kordychev, well, by proportion, but Iceland has 300,000 people and New Zealand has 5 million. But sure, I think Iceland is the world leader in geothermal. And sure, by percentage, of course, they have more. I wonder for total capacity, though. I used to live near Wairaraki, where they had a big geothermal power plant. But yeah. I'm curious for total amount, and I'm curious why Japan doesn't have more. And yeah, right now, Japan as well is looking at, now that they're talking about, the environment minister actually kind of had a brainwave the other day and said that, we're going to go for 40% renewable power. And part of that is that they're going to look at setting up offshore wind. I do like the idea. Whoops. Wrong magazine, wrong place. I do like the idea that they can do more offshore wind. Offshore wind has kind of been controversial in America because, you have people who don't like windmills out in the ocean ruining their ocean views. I don't know that they do ruin ocean views, and, that's where you have the most stable air supply, and I think it's important enough, and if it can be done economically enough, it's something that Japan could do more of. So that's a good thing. I don't know why it's got the Tokyo to ban the sale of gasoline cars by 2030. That's from last week. Toyota came out this week, by the way, saying, however, that they thought that the sudden announcements of bans on gasoline cars was going to disrupt the entire Japanese car manufacturing model, and that they couldn't convert that fast, and was pretty critical of the idea of switching over to EV cars. But there again, at the same time, Toyota is pivoting. They are announcing solid-state battery cars and fuel cell cars. So I'm still looking forward to the innovation that it's going to drive, but they are upset. This was kind of funny. Kyoto's a funny place. I've only been to Kyoto like once or twice, but Kyoto, apparently there was a poster, which here, can I get a close-up of that photo? Rising again, save the world from Kyoto, Japan. I think there needs to be probably a comma in there somewhere. It's not that bad, but that is a funny poster. There's kind of a funny thing with Kyoto as well. How I know people from Kyoto, and if you meet someone from like Kobe or even Osaka, they'll say that they're Kansai-jin, they're from Kansai. But if you ever meet someone from Kyoto, which is right adjacent to Osaka and definitely in Kansai, when you say you're a Kansai-jin or you're speaking Kansai, they'll sort of go, no, I am from Kyoto. Kyoto 1, Osaka 2. In fact, I have a friend from Nara who was like, Nara 1, Kyoto 2, Kansai 3, Japanese 4. So yeah, they're kind of proud of the history that they have down there. They still are pissed off that Tokyo got to take the capital away from them. And there's all that funny stuff down there that they give even fellow Japanese a kind of a hard time, that if you are Japanese and you migrate to Kyoto, there is this idea that unless you're like 6th generation Kyoto resident, you can't live or rent property or buy property like in the central Kyoto districts. I mean, kind of apartheidy, racist-y kind of stuff. There are people who live, like sometimes when I remember I took my mum on a tour, we had a tour guide in Kyoto. Excellent. You can get a taxi tour guide. They're pretty affordable. They take you around the whole day wherever you want to go. I think I asked the guy, like, so you're a Kyoto guy? And he was like, no, we're only 4th generation. We don't count yet. I was like, that's harsh. So yeah, Kyoto has things it can work on, including their English grammar, and saving the world from Kyoto. I got a little bit of a chuckle at that. The J-Vlog. I call BS to the geothermal concept. It's called a closed loop. I'm not sure what you mean. Well, I think the idea that if you have the Earth, perpetually generating warm water underground, there is an idea of power generation in the deep ocean, that just the differentiated water temperature at the surface and the bottom, you can actually circulate water in a way that doesn't generate a lot of power, but you can actually do the just based on the temperature difference. And you can probably do that's not how geothermal works in New Zealand. New Zealand, it works literally by using the geothermal heat to turn it into steam and driving turbines. But yeah, you can do things like that. Again, enough for Japan, I'm not sure, but I don't know the reasons that it's so limited. Tech Art 2, heard anything about Nintendo Land? Actually, there is, I didn't include the link in here, maybe I should have, on Engadget, the tech blog, there's an article this week which features a video subtitled in English by what's-his-face, the guy who invented Mario, giving a 15-minute long tour of Mario Land, or Nintendo Land. And I watched about half of it, but yeah, it's a pretty good video. It's pretty comprehensive. I was never a Mario guy. I was an Atari 2600. I was a little bit predating the Nintendo Famicom, and then after that, when I got back into video games again, it was Mega Drive and 32X and PlayStation. So I kind of skipped the Nintendo stuff, but yeah, if you're into that sort of thing, the video by that was featured, the full tour of it, it looks like it's ready to go, and it looks really well done, actually. So worth checking out Engadget for the latest on that, although I don't have the link in here. Doopy King, by the way. Good to see another name there, and good to have you in the chat. Our friend's Kyoto mother-in-law. Yes, Tokyo. They are also a city. That's nice acknowledgement there. For those of you who are wondering, does Japan have anti-vaxxers? Yeah, Japan, the way I look at it, Japan has 120 million people, so there are people everywhere. What is funny about this is, one, these are pretty fringe. So these people found a coronavirus testing center. But now that the tests are cheaper, that used to be like $300, like some IM for a test. You can get them cheaper for that now, and there are places opening up that for a fee you can just go pay. Even if you're just worried, you only get a test for free if you think you've got it and you can prove that you get the government back testing, and the private tests are not counted in the numbers. That used to be a bigger deal back in the earlier waves. Now there are PCR testing centers relatively everywhere. So yeah, a bunch of protesters got together on the internet and decided to picket a PCR testing place, wearing signs saying that the coronavirus is just a cold, and the coronavirus is fake, and don't vaccinate, and they're trying to control us, and everybody stop wearing masks and have parties. And everybody reacting on the internet to these photos saying, wow, what a bunch of weirdos. No support whatsoever from the Japanese internet community, other than looking at them and saying, hey, well, it looks like some of you guys might have been here. Corona is a lie. The young lady there also saying that Corona is a lie. Yeah, it's a weird place to go protest. I suppose if you really are anti-vax, going to a vaccination center is the logical place to do it. But yeah, that's a thing, and everyone looks at them as weird. Koizumi's, I still don't honestly understand how Japan could get to 40% renewable power, unless you count big hydro, which doesn't normally count. And normally you want new power, and you don't want big hydro because, you have to flood like enormous areas to do that. But yeah, the sort of unstable renewable energy, typically grids can only handle 5%. Japan has like 8 separate power grids within a really small country, so they make it even harder for themselves. But there again, there's better microgrid technology, better batteries, and there's better grid interchanges to allow load balancing across different grids now. So if 40% is possible, go for it. But this is also the guy who last year went to a climate conference and said that it was still really important to burn coal, which was what Japan's been doing ever since they shut down the nuclear power plants. Where basically renewables have grown a little bit, but they already had a big feed-in tariff before the Fukushima thing. However, they couldn't expand that because it was unstable, and the power, big power companies didn't want to install more unstable power sources. So when the nuclear power plants went offline, they replaced it with LNG and LPG and coal. Thermal plants, which he's been defending. But yeah, they've changed the tune. I mean, it's great that Japan's doing all of this big announcements on IT and on the environment and all that sort of stuff. I'm very happy about this, although at the same time, it's all going to cost a ton of money. That Japan is like, the economy is in the crapper, and they're spending a lot of money right now on stimulus. And I know this is all considered sort of stimulus, but I do worry about Japan becoming like Greece and just everything suddenly like collapsing. The only reason, Japan has the highest per capita debt of any country, I believe, Western country in the world. The only big difference is that they don't have the money on loans from countries like Germany or the IMF. They actually just loan the money domestically, which still has the question about what happens. Like, can it collapse? We'll see. But I like the targets. And the thing is, if you do it in the right way, you can actually, like I was pointing to earlier, it actually ends up equating to energy efficiency, which can actually lead to more efficient, production, which means that you can make stuff that's more expensive, higher value goods cheaper, and get higher profit margins off them. So there is a payoff from it. But yeah, I'm really curious how they're going to get to that. Fusion power in 10 years, I would love that. Quentin Rankin, where does Japan get its coal from? Mostly Australia, from what I understand. Yeah, LNG as well, Kang and Kodos, and Brunei, where it gets a lot of oil and LNG as well. But yeah, mostly from Australia, as far as I understand. I don't think they get it from China. China has a ton of coal, but they use it themselves. Toshiba, by the way, there's a lot of news like this week, but it's just what's showing up in the news. So yeah, Toshiba, they have a huge business building nuclear power plants, and on top of building like a whole bunch of power plants in Japan, they also were starting to export and build nuclear power plants in UK and other places. And all of their projects here and overseas have been getting cancelled, but yet they have a really big power business. Marco Fernandez, hey there, good to see you in the comments, and thank you for saying hello. It's always nice to see additional commenters. Good to have you there. So yeah, Toshiba, they're a big nuclear power company. Basically, I think you might know them more as the laptop computer company and a sort of tech company. But they've got a massive nuclear power business that's not making any money, and they've had to pivot, and they've basically decided to switch fully over into renewables, at least in terms of PR. And that's kind of a cool thing, and the fact that they're planning this sort of investment blitz and this retooling, again, it's going to make all these other things sort of happen. So it's an exciting time seeing the change, and I hope that they're successful. I mean, that business has been really struggling, partly because of the failures of its nuclear business. But yeah, there's opportunities in that. I mentioned before about UNESCO deciding to list Japan's architecture skills. I would grant that on condition that they actually put pink bats into the walls so that houses don't actually become like colder than the outside or hotter than the outside. Zolzi, good to see you. New username, always good to see a new name. And Barry Bonds, long time though, good to have you in here. And always happy to give updates on Japan. That's what I do. 3 things that I love all in one place here. Rocket Lab, a New Zealand space company that actually now has multiple times successfully launched satellites into orbit. Japanese space company and space. I mean, 3 things altogether. Rocket Lab has launched a Japanese satellite. Rocket Lab, the rockets that they launched are small, but they can launch many satellites, multiple ones into low Earth orbit that can stay there. And they're doing a ton of really still cool stuff. They're actually planning a Venus. The next probe that's going to make it to Venus is going to be launched by Rocket Lab. They have a lot of American money, but they launch out of New Zealand. It's crazy to me that New Zealand has a space program. I mean, it's a private one, but yeah, it's just really cool that they're doing this. And you know, SpaceX is getting a lot of the press, understandably, but this is actually one of the players that are up there doing really cool things. And the Japanese space program is just killing it right now. Check this out from Hayabusa 2. It's kind of funny. While you know, China is making a big deal out of the fact they successfully brought moon rocks back for the first time in ages, and America is now currently trying to get their own. In fact, they've just gotten their first sample ever from an asteroid, and that got a lot of press. But Japan's just successfully done it a second time. The first time was kind of messed up. The collector didn't work very well, and there were only a couple of grains of sand in there that they were able to actually extract and analyze. But yeah, this time they got some proper asteroid rocks and dust and so on in there, and yeah, that's just super cool that they're able to do that. I still am hoping within my lifetime we'll be able to actually just bring asteroids over and park them near Earth and not need to mine on Earth anymore, that we can get everything we need off dragging asteroids near Earth to be able to use them that way. I have no idea what KSP is, K and Kodos, but yes. But anyway, super cool that, again, Japan is doing that. And also because they're basically paying for the current space stations and so on. They're getting more astronauts that'll be going on the new Falcon rocket and the upcoming space station cruise, which is also super cool. So yeah, a lot of cool stuff happening with Japan in space at the moment. Massive snow this week everywhere except Tokyo. One of the reasons they moved the capital to Tokyo is that it has less hot summer. The summers here are miserable and hot, but they are less hot than most other parts of Japan, and the winters are more mild than most other places in Japan. You know, and it's because Tokyo is basically shielded on the west and the north by mountains, which are covered in snow, which means that right now, like less than 1 hour away from Tokyo, there are places that have had like 2 meters of snow in a couple of days. Terrible case of being on a highway. I couldn't imagine being in a highway stuck in a car for 3 days, as has happened in some cases. You know, you can't leave the engine running because the fumes are dangerous and you'll run out of fuel. So how do you stay warm if you're not planning, if you don't have food in the car and you don't have blankets and stuff like that? Imagine being trapped in a car in a snowdrift for 3 days. And if there were like 2,000 cars stuck in the situation near Niigata, it is crazy. It was predicted that there'd be heavy snow this year because of the La Nina weather pattern that we're having. That's part of it. But yeah, if you're living in those parts of Japan, I mean, it's again why Japan has such awesome skiing and so on, that they have mountains that have just a lot of snow. Tokyo, it has just been sunny and dry. All the snow gets sort of burned out before it makes it here, which is again partly why they moved the capital here. But pretty tough, and again, as usual, lots of accidents from elderly people in rural towns, like trying to push snow off roofs and getting caught in snowdrifts or falling off roofs. So yeah, again, if you're in one of the snowier parts of Japan, stay safe. And yeah, if you're in Tokyo, you're kind of lucky right now. We get snow more towards where we get it come off the Pacific Ocean more in late January and February. But yeah, that's a thing that's happening right now. Barry Bonds, do I reckon that Japan will be open by Sakura season next year? Oh, you mean open in terms of coronavirus? No. Right now there are no approved vaccines, and the earliest predicted timeline for approval of the vaccines for the safety trials in Japan, even for the ones that are approved like the Pfizer and the Moderna ones, for the end of February. So that means that they'd be coming out in March, and 120 million people. So I think average people are probably, well, hopefully they can get them out like the masks, but I think it's going to be, it wouldn't be like the masks at all, actually. No, I think it's going to be at least mid-year. It's going to be at least June or July before they could even start normally distributing vaccines. And they don't even know how they're going to do that yet, let alone the benefits, and that's not going to eradicate it either. So I think we're going to be well into summer, maybe the end of summer, before things go back to relative normal here. I don't know that things are going to go back to the way they were ever again, but we'll see. No, it's an interesting question. Hope for the best, but right now the realist in me says that we are still not 6 months away from the end of from any sort of normalcy yet, even with Japan being isolated, which is not going to be. But you know what? Good point. They are aiming to be able to be some sort of normal by the time of the Olympics. I don't think that's achievable. I think they can do the Olympics, but I think it's still going to be weird and locked down. But I think probably it's a target. It's a good incentive to get as many people vaccinated and get the country as back to normal as possible. So we'll see. The hope is, I guess, that would make it July, which I think is a realistic timeline. I see people talking about a story that they recommend, but I can't trace back in the chat, and I won't be able to do that. Oh yeah, so look, when I designed a custom keyboard, that's what I designed on Vermilio, which is a sounds like a Portuguese name, but it's a Chinese company that actually makes custom nice keyboards with all the switches and bases and keycaps. You choose everything. Japanese layout. Picked out some colors that I thought were nice and that would just instantly look like it was customized. Like, you can't buy something like this in a shop with really high performance nice switches that'll just feel really nice and be quiet and let me type quietly. Keycaps, I didn't want all the extra Japanese characters on them. Just keep them simple and nice and big and readable. I thought about making it extra custom. You can actually have like purple font and stuff like that, but you couldn't see them as clearly and it just didn't look as good. And I thought, well, I don't want to be showing off so much that it's not functional. So anyway, that's going to show up in about 3 weeks, and I'm really looking forward to that. And the situation in Tokyo right now is that, yes, while the numbers are not as bad as in other places, right now, Tokyo, Mie Prefecture, Aichi Prefecture, Hyogo Prefecture, is that Kochi Prefecture? Kochi Prefecture, Osaka, and Hokkaido all are now where hospital beds are now at almost maximum capacity, which is alarming because the cases are accelerating right now. So, it's probably bad to get COVID at any time, but to get COVID and have a case requiring hospitalization, it's going to become pretty tough for the next few months. All the more reason to stay at home and stay safe, but that is the current situation. Before I wrap up, just other stuff. I haven't been tweeting so much, but I have been catching up, watching a few things on Netflix and Amazon Prime. I watched The Boys, the first 2 seasons. That was all right. The first season was okay. The second season was up and down. I did quite like the ending. Mandalorian was so good. I watched that. I started watching The Expanse a couple of days ago. I just caught up to it today, end of episode 3. That is good. It's funny. So I suppose, do I recommend The Boys? The Boys. Not really. It's okay. Carl Urban. It is funny hearing a New Zealander with putting on a fake Cockney accent, and particularly when he's swearing, he's just in Kiwi mode. He only changes a few words. So yeah, I guess to an American, it all sounds like an English accent. Probably to a British person and to a New Zealand person who can tell the difference, it sounds like a Kiwi with a terrible British accent that Americans are just buying. But I kind of liked it. But The Expanse is good. It's a little bit, it's a million times more cerebral than The Boys. It's a bit slow paced, but I kind of appreciate that. By the way, season 4 of The Expanse I thought was a real disappointment. Frankly, I know that they made a big deal about saving the series from cancellation and bringing it back. I get the vibe that season 5 is going to be a lot better. Season 4 I didn't like very much. The first 3 seasons of The Expanse I liked, so I'm enjoying watching that. And that's pretty much what I'm watching right now. I've got Powell Sendai Picture. Oh, this is Powell from Twitter and Instagram, I assume. Good to see you, konbanwa. And thank you for using the correct kanji there. Hi, Hiko-Simon. Indeed. Diggins Konto, good to see you. The Boys was excellent. I did like The Boys, but I have trouble recommending The Boys. I don't know. If you watch, like, I mean, one episode is enough and you'll know whether it's your thing or not. The extreme, I mean, they would, at times, it's so patently just going for shock, you know, the splatter violence and the language and everything. And that is fun, but, you know, it's not even jokingly immature sometimes. I tweeted during the week that there's an episode, yeah, slight spoiler. There's an episode where it turns out that, you know, two of the bad guys fall in love, and one of them turns out to be something like, you know, 110 years old, something like that. And but they look young, you know. Their superhero. One of their superhero powers is that they never age. And there's some reference made earlier in the episode of pop. You know, there's a lot of pop references. The second season, obviously, they got a lot of rights to music that they didn't have in the first season, so they just doubled down on spending money. And yeah, they made a couple of jokes about the Golden Girls. And then at the end of the thing, when the big reveal that, oh, she's actually 110 years old, and they started playing the Golden Girls theme, and damn you, the boys. I've had the Golden Girls theme song stuck in my head now for like 3 or 4 days, and I can't get rid of it. Whatever happened to like theme songs like that? Like, they used to be really good. Ken Tanaka. I don't know how many of you should all know Ken Tanaka. And his twin brother, the Hollywood actor David Urey. David Urey's done a series of dramatic monologues, basically saying the lyrics to 1980s you know, sitcom theme songs, you know, as dramatic monologues, and they're really, really good. And actually, the Golden Girls theme would be an excellent one to add to that. Irock299, excellent to see you in the comments. Thanks for joining. And Christopher Luke, good to see you as well. I feel pandered with The Mandalorian. Well, definitely fan service is in the mind of the creators of it, but no, I'm cool with it. I mean, the fact that they had finally one good season, and this is someone, I've seen the Christmas special, I've seen the Ewoks movies, I've seen all the things that can go wrong with Star Wars spin-offs. I thought Rogue One was really, really well done, and I think that The Mandalorian is very well done, and I enjoy it a lot. But they had one success, and then Disney announced like a million spin-off different shows, and it's just like, oh man, you're just ruining a good thing with like mass production. You're just gonna drive it into the ground. But so far, so good. And, you know, again, Boba Fett's, they decided, obviously, a long way down the road when they made the prequels to make Boba Fett a New Zealander. I do enjoy the fact that there's a famous New Zealand actor who gets to play that role. And I thought he was getting a bit old, but no, if he's coming back, Boba Fett's getting his own spin-off season. That's awesome. So, yeah, it's a bit pandered, but I think that's what it's all good about. No, Steve from Berkeley, I don't think he ever did. I think he's going to be looking forever. Baby Shark for the win. Indeed, the J-Vlogs. Stay away from catchy internet songs. I'm perfectly on time, 2 minutes ahead of time. I've just finished all the topics. If you've got nothing for me, I'm going to wrap it up on time. I hope you're all having a good weekend, staying safe. I hope you're in Japan or virtually in Japan or wherever you are in the world. Please take care of yourselves. And you know what? It's Christmas this week. And I think of Christmas, you know, it doesn't have to be a religious thing. It's not been a religious thing for me since I was like 12. You know, I think it's just a good time to take it easy with the family. And I think it's just a thing. I think it pinched a little bit the first year I spent in Japan that I didn't go back to. I didn't spend Christmas at home, and it wasn't the religious thing. It was just that all my life that had just been a time like an American Thanksgiving where I was used to being at home. And it pinches when you can't do what you used to, and you know, that's the one time that you think, oh, I'm going to go catch up with family, and you don't. I think it's going to be, a lot of people are going to experience that maybe for the first time, and it's going to bite a little bit, but in the end of the day, it's just what you got to do, you know. And the hope is that 2021 will have some return to being able to travel and see each other and get back, hopefully by the end of the year. And I'm hoping it won't just be in this case. It'll be that we'll learn from this how to manage the inevitable future pandemics that are also going to happen. So, you know, I'm hoping we'll come out of this better. And I'm hoping we'll do it during next year, but I'm not, you know, don't expect anything too soon, but looking forward to it all being over. I am going to say good night with that, and have a good week, everybody. I will still be on Twitter if you want to get in touch with me. Remember, I'm here every Sunday night at 10:30 p.m. If you like the show, please click like because it helps. I see some names there. We've got Sleepy314. Good to see you. Mavericks is 10 meters this week. Oh, man. I've been to Mavericks when it had no waves, but that is cool. I would love to see that. You're lucky if you can see that, Sleepy314. I also saw someone else here that Steve from Berkeley. So yes, please remember to like. Christmas KFC. Yeah, we've talked about that. It's actually hard to get KFC. It's all booked out. Maybe some chicken of other sorts, but the name of the keyboard is the Vermilo. Well, actually, it's custom, but it's 110% Vermilo, which I've got with the JIS Japanese layout, custom keycaps, Silent Cherry MX Red keycaps. I'll do a big thing on it when I get it. I'll share the specs of it. Maybe so. Yeah, I'll go through that. But yeah. So however you're spending this week, whether you're working or doing nothing at all, or if it's Hanukkah or Kwanzaa or Christmas, do whatever you're going to do. Have fun. Give your family a Skype call and tell them that you love them, and as we'll be doing here. And stay safe. And I'll be back here next week, day after Boxing Day, for another Tokyo Tonight. Have a good week, everybody. Like if you liked, and boom, peace. Kakite ano. Have a good one. See ya. Yes, I'll type the name of the keyboard company, Vermilo. I got a premium custom keyboard. Also, if you use ANSI, if you use standard keyboard layouts, use ANSI, check out iClinics. They make one, the F96 that I almost got. They're in the chat. Check those things out. I'll do a big deep dive on the keyboard when it arrives, and I'll explain a bit more about it. But yeah, have a good week, everybody. Stay safe. See you later. Boom. End.